Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So last week a few people asked about the build that I was using in my dungeon run video. So this is a build that I adapted from one that Mal posted about a few weeks back. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this.
So I thought we'd kick this video off with a side-by-side comparison of the new build versus the original. Huge shout out to my friend GameZone for compiling the side-by-side video for me. But I wanted to test both out just to see which was quicker and if there was much difference between the two. So I'm using the same set items in both builds. I'm also using a couple of the same skills. So we've got Magic Missile, we've got Lightning Nova, and we've got Arcane Torrent in both builds. So those things I haven't changed. In the old build, I did swap out the Essence on Ice Armor compared to my previous dungeon run videos, and I'm also running this dungeon on Inferno 6 difficulty, so obviously I'm not yet at the correct Paragon for that, but that is what I have been running in parties and everything anyway, so I thought I would use that for the side-by-side solo comparison also. The reason for running it solo is so that nothing else has an effect on it and I've got more control over the test environment. So I'm going to let you continue watching this and we'll join back together at the end to discuss and talk through the build. So at this point it's quite clear which build works better on the bosses. Although it was looking ropey at the start, the new build definitely does work quicker. So now let's take a look into what we're using for this. So taking a look first at the set items, we're using 4 pieces of Angmets. So with this one, the duration of your additional Ignite status is increased by 30%, and there is a 15% chance of attaching an Ignite status to an enemy when dealing damage with primary attacks or skills, dealing 18,231 damage over 3 seconds up to a maximum of 3. So that can stack up to 3 and basically give you that little bit boost in damage. Alongside this, we're using 4 pieces of Grace, so all continual damage, channel damage and persistent ground damage is increased by 15%, and each time you damage an individual enemy 5 times, you will do 15,192 additional damage to that enemy. Now, part of the reason I'm using this setup is because I don't have any more wisps to craft, but I may swap out Angmets for Vitus and retest this once we hit Paragon 1300. Now moving on to legendary items, and starting off with the helm, we are using Silver Lining. So with this one, Black Hole now devours the power of enemies caught within it, increasing the damage you deal by 28.5% for 6 seconds. So basically throw Black Hole and then spam with all of your skills and primary attacks, and that will give you that boost in damage there. Moving on to the chest, we're using Sprite Spark. So this one, Lightning Nova, now transfigures you into a ball of pure lightning, allowing you to move at high speed and continually deal damage to any nearby enemies. Lightning Nova damage is increased by 18%, but obviously that also increases your movement speed, so a really nice one. We're using the new Crystalline Shadow on the shoulder, so Disintegrate now summons an Arcane Deputy that follows you and channels a Disintegrate beam at enemies. Disintegrate damage is increased by 18%. Looking at the pants, we're using Hastened Oblivion. So with this, Disintegrate's cooldown is reduced by 1.6 seconds when damaging enemies up to a maximum of 4.8 seconds. Disintegrate damage is also increased 10% from the Awakened slot. We're using my favourite Rift Carver on the main hand, so Arcane Torrent now creates a Chaotic Orb that moves with you and fires Arcane Missiles at random nearby enemies. Arcane Torrent damage is increased 18% and additional 10% from the Awakened slot there as well. Now looking at the offhand, so it's actually the first time I've used this essence in any build, and this is Chaos Rupture. So with this one, Black Hole instead conjures an unstable star which explodes when it expires, damaging nearby enemies. Black Hole damage is increased 18% and Black Hole cooldown is decreased by 10% from the awakened slot there. Looking at the alternate main hand, we're using Entropic Edge, so this is simple, but disintegrate damage is increased by 19%. Then the alternate offhand, we're using Blaster Cast, so Magic Missile fires 2 additional missiles, each dealing 4,119 damage. Damage is increased 90%. So that is another solid favourite of mine for the essences. So we're going to take a quick look at legendary gems. They're the same as I use in all my builds. I don't really swap these out much. We're using Blood-Soaked Jade, Starfire Shard, Seeping Bile, Pain Clasp, Viper's Bite, Mother's Lament, Gloom Cask, and Bottled Hope. Although I will at some point swap out Gloom Cask for the new Rolling Consequence when I can get myself a 4-star quality one of that. And again, I'll retest this with some different set items as well. So just to touch on a couple more things before we finish, the first is warband buffs. So for this build in dungeons, I run with the Protector, which increases block chance by 5%, damage taken reduced by 1%, and I've got that twice in this Remnant set. Reduces damage taken by 15% for 6 seconds when below 15% of your total life, cannot occur more than once every 60 seconds. And then this is the main one that I'm using it for, increases your life by 6.5% and your size by 15%. So that increases your movement speed in the dungeons, similar to the chest that we're using as well. So we're now just going to test a 10-second burst of this on the test dummy to see the damage that it does in 10 seconds. And it also gives about 1.3 million damage per second over a 1 minute sustained period as well, which I will show a screenshot of at the end. But overall, a really strong build. I hope you found this video helpful. As always, thank you for watching and have a great day.